Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we are taking an exciting journey through several United States Washington quarters that every coin collector should know about. We will be looking at the 1966 Washington quarter with no mint mark, the 1970 D Washington quarter, the 1988 D Washington quarter, and the 1989 D Washington quarter. These coins may look like ordinary pocket change, but their dates, mint marks, condition, varieties, and preservation can make a major difference when it comes to collector value. The 1966 quarter is especially interesting because regular 1966 Washington quarters were struck without mint marks, so the absence of a mint mark is normal for this issue. The 1970 D quarter comes from the Denver Mint, while the 1988 D and 1989 D quarters also carry the important D mint mark from Denver. Throughout this video, we will explore what makes these quarters interesting, how to identify them correctly, how circulation wear affects their value, and why some exceptionally preserved examples can sell for dramatically more than ordinary circulated coins. We will also discuss why you should never assume that one high auction price applies to every coin of the same date and mint mark, so before you spend an old Washington quarter, take a close look at it. Check the date, check the mint mark, examine both sides, and pay attention to the condition and any unusual details. Most circulated examples may be worth only a small amount above face value, but exceptional coins, rare varieties, and genuine mint errors can be much more interesting to collectors. Stay with me until the end as we uncover the important details about these four Washington quarters and learn what you should look for when checking your own coins. If you enjoy rare coins, valuable quarters, coin collecting, and discovering hidden treasures in everyday change, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and join us for more exciting coin discoveries. Let's get started. Coin number 1. If you have a 1970 D Washington quarter sitting in an old coin collection, a jar, or even among your pocket change, you may be wondering whether this quarter is worth only its face value or whether it could be worth much more to collectors. In today's video, we're taking a close look at the 1970 United States Washington quarter with the D mint mark, especially examples in circulated condition, and we will discuss what these coins can realistically be worth in today's market. The 1970 D Washington quarter was struck at the Denver Mint and is made from copper-nickel clad material rather than silver. That is an important detail because many people see an older Washington quarter and automatically assume that it contains silver. The 1970 D issue does not have the 90% silver composition found on Washington quarters dated 1964 and earlier. The 1970 D Washington quarter had a large production run, with approximately 417,341,364 pieces struck at the Denver Mint. Because of this high mintage, an ordinary circulated example is not considered an extremely rare coin simply because it carries the 1970 date and D mint mark. The D mint mark can be found on the obverse of the coin, below the neck of George Washington. When you examine your coin, make sure the date is clearly 1970 and that the small D mint mark is present. These details are important because different dates, mint marks, varieties, errors, and grades can have dramatically different values. For a normal circulated 1970 D Washington quarter, the market value is generally modest. NGC's July 2026 guide places circulated examples in the approximate range of 30 cents to 85 cents, depending on condition. That means a typical worn coin that has spent years in circulation may be worth only slightly above face value. This is a good reminder that age alone does not automatically make a coin valuable. A coin can be more than 50 years old and still be common if millions of examples were produced and many survived. The condition of your 1970 D quarter is one of the biggest factors determining its value. A circulated coin may show scratches, contact marks, flattened details, dull surfaces, discoloration, and wear on the highest parts of Washington's portrait and the eagle on the reverse. These characteristics are normal for a coin that has been used in commerce. If your quarter is heavily worn, it will normally remain close to its ordinary circulated value. If the coin has only light circulation and retains strong detail, however, it may attract more interest from collectors, particularly if the surfaces are attractive and the coin has no major damage. The most exciting part of the 1970 D Washington quarter story comes when we move from ordinary circulated coins into exceptionally high-grade and unusual examples. Certified coins in very high mint state grades can bring substantially more money than a normal circulated quarter. PCGS auction records show a 1970 D Washington quarter, graded MS68+, selling for $3,960 in December 2022. Another example graded MS66 Plus sold for $120 in March 2018. These results demonstrate why condition can completely change the market value of a coin. But it is very important not to confuse a normal circulated quarter with one of these elite certified examples. A circulated coin should not be valued at thousands of dollars, simply because a spectacular high-grade specimen once achieved a strong auction result. Another major factor that can make a 1970D Washington quarter much more interesting is an error or recognized variety. The 1970D issue is known for a rare double-die obverse variety. Heritage Auctions has described a 1970D Washington quarter double-die obverse variety as extremely rare, with the doubling particularly noticeable in areas such as Liberty. One Heritage example was certified MS65 by PCGS and identified as FS102. This is completely different from an ordinary 1970D quarter. If you believe your coin has doubling, do not immediately assume that every small irregularity is a valuable doubled die. Machine doubling, die deterioration, scratches, and normal wear can sometimes look like doubling to an inexperienced collector. When checking the obverse, carefully examine the lettering, especially Liberty, the date, and the other inscriptions. Genuine double die characteristics can be subtle, and authentication is particularly important when a coin appears to be a valuable variety. One example of a 1970D double die obverse quarter listed as NGCVF25 has been offered for around $124.99, although an asking price is not the same thing as a confirmed auction sale and should not be treated as proof of market value. The safest approach is to compare your coin with recognized variety references, and when the potential value is significant, consider professional authentication. The reverse of the 1970D Washington quarter should also be inspected carefully. Look at the eagle, the inscriptions, the rim, and the overall strike. Damage from circulation can reduce collector appeal, while an unusually strong strike with attractive surfaces can make a coin more desirable. Pay attention to scratches and cleaning. A coin that has been harshly cleaned may appear shiny, but experienced collectors generally prefer original surfaces. Artificial shine does not necessarily increase value and can actually hurt the desirability of a collectible coin. It is also important to understand the difference between face value, collector value, and auction value. The face value of the 1970D Washington quarter is 25 cents. A typical circulated example may trade for only a small premium above that amount. A high-grade certified example can be worth much more, while a rare error or variety can potentially bring a significant premium. An auction record represents what a particular specimen achieved under particular circumstances. It does not mean every coin with the same date and mint mark is worth that amount. So, if you have a circulated 1970D Washington quarter, what should you realistically expect? For an ordinary circulated example with normal wear and no recognized error, a value around the lower circulated range is much more realistic than a value of hundreds or thousands of dollars. NGC currently gives approximately 30 cents to 85 cents for circulated 1970D quarters, while exceptional uncirculated coins can move into much higher territory. Your exact coin could fall outside a simple range depending on its grade, appearance, variety, and market demand. The good news is that finding a normal circulated coin is still useful because it can teach you what to look for. Before spending money on professional grading, examine the coin under good lighting and use a magnifying glass if necessary. Check the date, confirm the D mint mark, inspect both sides for unusual doubling or other errors, and look closely at the rims and lettering. Do not clean the coin. Cleaning can remove original surface characteristics and potentially reduce collector appeal. If the coin appears to have a genuine rare variety or unusually high-grade surfaces, then professional authentication and grading may be worth considering. The 1970D Washington quarter is a perfect example of why coin collecting is about much more than simply finding an old date. Millions of these quarters were made, so the ordinary circulated pieces are generally affordable. But within a common issue, collectors can sometimes find scarce varieties, unusual errors, or exceptionally preserved coins. The difference between an ordinary worn quarter and a certified top-grade example can be enormous. PCGS auction records demonstrate this clearly, with elite 1970D examples reaching thousands of dollars, while ordinary circulated coins remain close to face value. One of the most important lessons for collectors is never to judge a coin's value from a single internet listing or an unbelievable headline. If you see a 1970D Washington quarter advertised for hundreds or thousands of dollars, check whether it is actually sold, whether it has been professionally graded, and whether it is a recognized error or variety. A seller can ask any price, but a completed auction provides much stronger evidence of what buyers were actually willing to pay. If your 1970D quarter is circulated, worn, and has no major error, you should not be disappointed. It is still an interesting piece of United States coinage from 1970 and an excellent addition to a date and mint collection. But if your coin has unusually sharp details, very clean surfaces, or possible double die characteristics, then it deserves a much closer inspection. That is where the possibility of a substantially higher value begins. Remember that coin values change with market conditions, collector demand, grade, certification, and auction competition. The figures discussed here are based on available market and auction information and should be treated as a guide rather than a guaranteed selling price. In particular, the famous $3,960 result belongs to a very high-grade certified 1970D quarter, not to an ordinary circulated example. So before you spend or sell your 1970D Washington quarter, take a second look. Confirm the date, locate the D mint mark below Washington's neck, inspect the condition, check the lettering for unusual doubling, and look carefully at both sides of the coin. Most circulated examples will be modestly valued, but exceptional grades and legitimate rare varieties are exactly what can make a familiar quarter much more interesting to collectors. If you enjoy discovering valuable coins, make sure you keep checking your old quarters, pennies, nickels, and dimes. Sometimes the most important detail is not the age of the coin but the mint mark, the condition, the variety, or the error hiding in plain sight. The 1970D Washington quarter may be common in circulated condition, but its high-grade auction records and rare double-die varieties show why collectors continue to examine these coins carefully. And that is what makes coin collecting so exciting. You never know what unusual detail you might find until you take a closer look. Coin number 2, if you have a 1988D Washington quarter in your collection, you may be wondering whether this ordinary-looking 25-cent coin could actually be worth more than its face value. In today's video, we're taking a detailed look at the 1988 United States Washington quarter with the D mint mark from the Denver Mint, especially examples in circulated condition, and we will explore what these coins can realistically be worth in today's market. The 1988 D Washington quarter is an interesting coin because although hundreds of millions were produced, exceptionally preserved examples can become surprisingly valuable. The important thing is to understand the difference between a normal circulated coin and a rare, high-grade specimen. The 1988 D Washington quarter was struck at the Denver Mint, and PCGS records a mintage of 596,810,688 pieces. The coin weighs 5.67 grams, measures approximately 24.3 millimeters in diameter, and uses a copper-nickel clad composition with a pure copper center. This means that the 1988 D quarter is not a 90% silver Washington quarter. It belongs to the later clad era of Washington quarters, so you should not value an ordinary 1988 D quarter based on silver content. The first thing to check is the date. Make sure your coin clearly shows 1988 on the obverse. Then look underneath Washington's neck for the small D mint mark. That D identifies the Denver Mint. If your coin does not have a D, you may have the Philadelphia issue instead, and that is a different coin with different population and auction information. For this video, we are specifically discussing the 1988 D Washington quarter. Now comes the most important question. What is a circulated 1988 D Washington quarter actually worth? According to the NGC Coin Explorer, as of May 2026, a circulated 1988 D Washington quarter is valued at approximately 30 cents to 85 cents, depending on its condition. So if your coin is an ordinary circulated example with scratches, contact marks, surface wear, and flat details from years of use, you should generally expect a value close to face value rather than hundreds or thousands of dollars. That may sound surprising when you see headlines claiming that a 1988 D Washington quarter can be worth more than $1,000, but there is an important difference between a circulated coin and an elite mint state coin. The famous high-dollar examples are not ordinary worn quarters. They are exceptionally preserved specimens that have been professionally graded and certified. PCGS reports an auction record of $1,645 for a 1988 D Washington quarter graded MS67, sold by Heritage Auctions on January 4, 2017. That is an extraordinary result compared with the value of a normal circulated quarter. This is one of the most important lessons for anyone collecting United States coins. Never assume that because one coin sold for $1,645, every coin with the same date and mint mark is worth $1,645. The grade is absolutely critical. A heavily circulated 1988 D quarter and a superb MS67 example can look like completely different investments from a collector's perspective. The auction record belongs to a specific coin in a specific condition, not to every 1988 D quarter. The reason high-grade 1988 D quarters attract attention is condition rarity. Nearly 600 million coins were struck, but surviving coins in extraordinary condition are much harder to find. PCGS's auction data lists 91 auction lots for the 1988 DMS category and records the $1,645 top price. A coin can therefore be common in circulated grades but scarce at the very highest grades. This is called condition rarity, and it is one of the reasons modern clad coins can sometimes bring impressive prices. If your 1988 D quarter is circulated, examine Washington's portrait carefully. Look at the hair, cheek, jawline, and other raised areas. Years of circulation can cause these details to become smooth. Check the lettering of Liberty and the date as well. On the reverse, inspect the eagle, the surrounding lettering, and the rim. Normal circulation produces small scratches, marks, and dullness. These characteristics are expected and generally keep the coin in the ordinary circulated category. A very important point is that you should never clean the coin in an attempt to make it look more valuable. Cleaning can damage the original surface and may reduce collector appeal. A naturally toned or naturally preserved coin can be much more desirable than a coin that has been aggressively polished. If you find an old 1988 D quarter, leave it exactly as you found it until you have determined whether it has any collector value. You should also inspect the coin for unusual errors. Not every scratch or mark is an error. Coins can receive damage after leaving the mint, and circulation can create marks that look unusual under magnification. A genuine mint error is different because the unusual feature was created during the manufacturing process. If you believe your 1988 D quarter has a significant error, compare it with recognized examples and consider professional authentication before assuming it is valuable. The most valuable 1988 D Washington quarters are generally the coins that combine exceptional preservation with professional certification. One PCGS recorded MS-67 example reached $1,645 at heritage auctions. Another recorded PCGS MS-67 example sold for $1,245.50 in a 2018 eBay sale tracked by PCGS auction prices. These results show that top-quality examples can command strong premiums, but they should not be used as the expected value for a circulated coin. For an ordinary circulated 1988 D Washington quarter, the realistic range is much lower. NGC's current guide information gives approximately 30 cents to 85 cents for circulated examples. Depending on the exact grade, appearance, demand, and whether the coin has a recognized variety or error, a particular specimen can sell for somewhat more or less. Uncertified online asking prices can also be misleading, because an asking price is not the same as a completed auction result. Another important distinction is between a coin being listed for a high price and a coin actually selling for that amount. Anyone can list a quarter online for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. What matters much more is documented evidence showing that a buyer actually paid that amount. Professional auction records from established numismatic companies are especially useful because they allow collectors to compare actual results. The 1988 D Washington quarter is also a good example of why coin grading matters. Professional grading services such as PCGS and NGC evaluate coins on a standardized numerical scale. Circulated coins receive grades below mint state, while coins that show no wear from circulation can receive mint state grades. The difference between MS-65, MS-66, and MS-67 can be extremely important for a modern coin because small marks and imperfections become increasingly important at the highest levels. If you find a 1988 D quarter that looks unusually bright, sharp, and nearly untouched, do not immediately clean it or spend money on grading without doing some research first. Look for strong original luster, sharp details, minimal contact marks, and attractive surfaces. Compare the coin with photographs of certified examples. If it appears genuinely exceptional, professional grading could help establish its condition and authenticity. However, if your coin is clearly circulated, professional grading may not be economical. A coin worth less than $1 generally does not make financial sense to submit for expensive certification. This is why understanding the condition before sending a coin to a grading company is so important. Collectors should focus grading expenses on coins with realistic potential for significant collector value. The 1988 D Washington quarter also reminds us that mintage alone does not determine value. With nearly 597 million pieces produced, the issue is not rare in terms of total production. But the number of coins surviving in extraordinary condition is much smaller. A common coin can therefore become scarce at a very high grade. This is exactly what happened with the MS-67 examples that have brought four-figure prices. So, if you have a circulated 1988 D Washington quarter in your pocket change, an old jar, or a coin collection, the most realistic expectation is that it is worth around its face value to less than $1 in normal circulated condition. NGC's current circulated estimate of 30 cents to 85 cents provides a useful benchmark. But if the coin is exceptionally preserved, the story changes dramatically. The documented PCGS auction record of $1,645 for an MS-67 example shows just how much the right condition can matter. Before selling your coin, carefully check both sides. Confirm that the date is 1988 and that the D mint mark is present beneath Washington's neck. Examine the surfaces for wear, scratches, discoloration, unusual doubling, missing details, or other possible mint-made characteristics. Use a magnifying glass if necessary, but remember that magnification can also make ordinary damage look much more dramatic than it really is. Do not let an exciting auction record convince you that every 1988 D quarter is rare. The vast majority of circulated examples are common and inexpensive. The real opportunity comes from identifying the unusual coin within the common group. A rare error, an authenticated variety, or an exceptionally high-grade example can be worth dramatically more than a normal circulated quarter. The market can also change over time. Coin prices depend on collector demand, population reports, auction competition, grade, eye appeal, and the availability of comparable examples. Therefore, the values discussed in this video should be treated as market guidance rather than a guaranteed selling price. A future auction could produce a higher or lower result depending on the exact coin and the bidders participating. The biggest takeaway is simple. If your 1988 D Washington quarter is circulated, do not expect a four-figure price. A normal worn example is generally worth only a small premium, if any, over its 25-cent face value. But if you discover a coin with exceptional preservation, a recognized variety, or a legitimate mint error, then it deserves a much closer examination. The documented $1,645 MS67 auction result proves that the right 1988 D quarter can be surprisingly valuable. So before you spend that 1988 D Washington quarter, take a second look. Check the date, check the D mint mark, study the condition, inspect both sides, and look for anything unusual. Most examples will remain ordinary pocket change coins, but the rare high-grade pieces are exactly why collectors continue searching through old rolls, collections, jars, and change. The excitement of coin collecting comes from knowing that even a familiar 25-cent piece can tell a much bigger story when you learn what to look for. Coin number 3, if you have a 1989 D Washington quarter in your pocket change, an old coin jar, or a collection, you may be wondering whether this 25-cent coin could actually be worth more than its face value. The 1989 D Washington quarter is an interesting modern United States coin because it was produced in very large numbers, yet exceptionally high-grade examples have brought surprisingly strong prices at auction. In this video, we're going to take a close look at the 1989 Washington quarter with the D mint mark, especially circulated examples, and explain what this coin can realistically be worth in today's market. The 1989 D Washington quarter was struck at the Denver Mint. Its mintage was approximately 896,535,597 coins, making it a very common issue in terms of total production. The coin is made from copper-nickel clad material, not the 90% silver composition used for Washington quarters dated 1964 and earlier. The standard specifications are approximately 5.67 grams in weight and 24.3 millimeters in diameter. This means that an ordinary 1989 D quarter should not be considered valuable because of silver content. The first thing you should do when examining your coin is confirm the date. Look closely at the obverse and make sure the last two digits are clearly 89. Then look underneath George Washington's neck for the small D mint mark. That D tells you the coin was produced at the Denver Mint. Once you have confirmed the 1989 date and D mint mark, the next and most important question is condition. If your 1989 D Washington quarter is circulated, meaning it has been used in everyday commerce and shows visible wear, its value is generally quite modest. Current market references show ordinary examples at values close to face value, while Coin World's value table places the lower circulated grades around the cents to under $1 range, with values increasing as the condition improves. In other words, a normal worn 1989 D quarter should not automatically be considered a rare or expensive coin. This is where many people become confused when they search online and see headlines about valuable 1989 D quarters. You may find a listing claiming that a 1989 D Washington quarter is worth hundreds of dollars, or you may discover an auction record showing a much higher price. But those prices usually relate to coins in extraordinary mint state condition, not normal circulated examples. The difference between a worn circulated quarter and an elite certified coin can be enormous. One of the strongest documented auction results for this date is a 1989 D Washington quarter graded MS67 by PCGS. PCGS records an auction record of $763.75 for an MS67 example sold by Heritage Auctions on June 8, 2017. That is a very impressive amount for a modern clad quarter, but it is extremely important to understand that this result applies to a specific high-grade certified specimen. It does not mean an ordinary circulated 1989 D quarter is worth $763 another dollars. Useful comparison comes from certified MS66 examples. PCGS records an MS66 1989 D Washington quarter selling for $41.70 in an eBay sale in April 2018. While Coin World lists examples of MS-66 PCGS coins selling through heritage auctions for approximately $41 and $45. These sales demonstrate how much the grade can affect the value of this coin. A coin that has never circulated and has excellent surfaces can command a premium even though hundreds of millions were originally produced. There is also an important difference between an auction record and a current guaranteed selling price. A historical auction result tells us what a particular coin achieved at a particular time under particular circumstances. It does not guarantee that another 1989 D quarter will sell for the same amount today. Coin prices can change based on collector demand, coin quality, certification, eye appeal, and competition between buyers. For a circulated 1989 D Washington quarter, you should carefully examine the highest points of Washington's portrait. Look at his hair, cheek, jaw, and the details around the neck. Circulation causes these areas to become smooth over time. The lettering can also show wear, and the overall surface may have scratches, contact marks, dirt, discoloration, and dullness. These characteristics are normal for a circulated coin and generally keep its value low. Now turn the coin over and examine the reverse. Look closely at the eagle, the surrounding lettering, and the rim. A circulated quarter may have small scratches and marks from being carried in pockets, handled by machines, or mixed with other coins. None of these marks automatically make the coin rare. In fact, many of the unusual-looking marks people notice on circulated quarters are simply post-mint damage. One of the biggest mistakes new collectors make is cleaning a coin because they believe a shiny surface means a higher value. Do not clean your 1989 D Washington quarter. Polishing, rubbing, or using chemicals can damage the original surface and may actually reduce its collector appeal. If you think your coin could be valuable, preserve it exactly as you found it and examine it carefully. Another thing to look for is an authentic mint error or recognized variety. However, you need to be very careful here. A damaged coin is not necessarily an error coin. Scratches, dents, flattened lettering, and unusual shapes can be caused after the coin leaves the mint. A genuine mint error must have a manufacturing-related explanation, and significant varieties should ideally be confirmed using reliable numismatic references or professional authentication. The enormous mintage of the 1989 D quarter is another reason ordinary examples are not considered rare. With nearly 897 million coins produced, there are still many surviving examples. But there is an important concept called condition rarity. A coin can be common in circulated condition while becoming much harder to find in extremely high mint state grades. That is one of the reasons a 1989 D quarter can sell for less than $1 when circulated but hundreds of dollars when certified at an elite grade. This difference is clearly demonstrated by the PCGS auction record. The MS-67 1989 D quarter reached $763.75, while certified MS-65 examples have sold for much less, including documented results of $16 and $19. These differences show that even within uncirculated coins, tiny changes in grade and quality can have a major impact on value. If your coin is circulated, you should therefore set realistic expectations. An ordinary 1989 D Washington quarter with normal wear is generally a face value or modest premium coin rather than a hundreds of dollars coin. Current market references support low values for circulated pieces, while much higher prices are associated with uncirculated and especially high-grade certified examples. But what if your 1989 D quarter looks almost brand new? This is where the story becomes more interesting. A coin that has strong original luster, sharp details, minimal contact marks, and no obvious signs of circulation could potentially qualify for a much higher grade. Even then, you should not assume it is automatically worth hundreds of dollars. Professional grading is important because the difference between an average uncirculated coin and an elite MS-67 coin can be enormous. When examining a potentially high-grade example, look for tiny contact marks. Modern clad quarters were often produced and transported in large quantities, so coins could hit each other and acquire small marks even before reaching circulation. These marks may prevent a coin from receiving the very highest grade. For a coin like the 1989 D quarter, where condition rarity matters, surface quality is extremely important. You should also look at the overall eye appeal. A coin with attractive original surfaces, strong luster, and excellent detail can be more desirable than a technically similar coin with unattractive surfaces. Collectors often pay attention not only to the numerical grade, but also to how the coin looks. Another important point is that an online asking price is not proof of value. Someone might advertise a 1989 D Washington quarter for $500, $1,000, or even more, but that does not mean buyers are actually paying those amounts. Completed auction sales are much stronger evidence. The documented PCGS and heritage auction records give us a better idea of what certified examples have actually brought. If you find a circulated 1989 D Washington quarter, there is still a reason to keep it if you enjoy collecting. It represents United States coinage from the late 1980s and can be useful for building a Dayton mint collection. Collecting does not always have to be about finding a coin worth hundreds of dollars. Sometimes the fun is simply identifying the date, mint mark, condition, and history of an ordinary piece of American currency. The 1989 D Washington quarter also teaches an important lesson about modern coins. A large mintage does not always mean that every surviving coin is equally common. Millions of examples were produced, but collectors can still compete for coins that survive in unusually high grades. This is why a coin that looks ordinary at first can become interesting when it is examined under magnification and evaluated according to professional grading standards. If your 1989 D quarter has been heavily circulated, expect a relatively small value. If it has moderate wear but attractive surfaces, it may have a small premium depending on the market. If it is uncirculated, the potential becomes more interesting. And if it is an exceptionally preserved MS-67 example, the documented auction history shows that the value can reach hundreds of dollars. The PCGS record of $763.75 is the clearest example of the difference between an ordinary coin and an elite specimen. Before you sell your coin, check the date and mint mark one more time. Make sure it is really 1989 D, then inspect the coin for wear. Look at Washington's hair and cheek, the lettering, the rim, and the reverse design. Look for unusual characteristics, but remember that not every imperfection is a valuable error. If you believe you have an exceptionally preserved example, consider comparing it with certified PCGS or NGC coins before deciding whether professional grading makes sense. Certification can provide an independent assessment of the coin's condition and can make it easier for buyers to understand exactly what they are purchasing. The current market also reminds us that value is not fixed forever. Auction prices can rise or fall depending on demand and the quality of the specific specimen. The $763.75 MS-67 auction record is an important historical benchmark, but it should not be presented as a guaranteed current price for every 1989 D quarter. So if you have a circulated 1989 D Washington quarter, the most realistic answer is that it is generally worth close to face value or a modest amount above it. The big money belongs to exceptional coins, particularly high-grade certified specimens. The difference is not simply the date or the D mint mark. It is the combination of condition, preservation, rarity at that grade, possible varieties or errors, and actual collector demand. The 1989 D Washington quarter may have been produced in huge numbers, but that does not mean you should ignore every example you find. Take a close look before spending it. Check the date, check the D mint mark, study the condition, inspect both sides, and look for anything genuinely unusual. Most circulated examples will not make you rich, but the rare high-grade specimens show why collectors continue to examine even common modern quarters. And remember, never clean a potentially valuable coin, never rely on an unrealistic online asking price, and never assume that one famous auction result applies to every example. The documented market evidence tells us that ordinary circulated 1989 D quarters are inexpensive, while exceptionally high-grade certified coins can bring dramatically more. That difference is exactly what makes coin collecting exciting. A quarter that looks like ordinary pocket change could be worth much more if it turns out to be an unusually preserved specimen. So before you put that 1989 D Washington quarter back into your pocket, take another look. The small D beneath Washington's neck, the amount of wear on the surfaces, the sharpness of the design, and the overall preservation can make all the difference. Most examples are common, but the right example in the right condition can become a serious collector coin, as the documented MS-67 auction record demonstrates. Coin number 4. If you have a 1966 United States Washington quarter with no mint mark, do not assume that the missing mint mark automatically makes the coin rare. In fact, the absence of a mint mark is completely normal for regular 1966 Washington quarters. This is one of the most important facts to understand before estimating the value of your coin. In 1966, regular Washington quarters were produced at the Philadelphia Mint, and the coins were intentionally issued without a mint mark. More than 821 million regular 1966 Washington quarters were struck, so an ordinary circulated example is generally common. The 1966 Washington quarter is particularly interesting because it comes from an important period in United States coinage. The U.S. Mint had recently moved away from the traditional silver composition used on earlier Washington quarters. The 1966 quarter is a copper-nickel clad coin with a pure copper center. It weighs approximately 5.67 grams and measures about 24.3 millimeters across. Unlike a 1964 Washington quarter, a normal 1966 quarter should not be considered a silver coin. When you look at your 1966 quarter, the first thing to check is the date. Make sure the final two digits are clearly 66. Then look underneath George Washington's neck. If there is no mint mark, that is exactly what you should expect from a regular 1966 issue. you should not think of the absence of a D or S as an error. The regular 1966 quarter was made without a mint mark, so the phrase 1966 no mint mark describes the normal coin rather than automatically identifying a rare variety. Now let's talk about the value of a circulated 1966 Washington quarter. According to the NGC Coin Explorer, as of June 2026, a 1966 Washington quarter in circulated condition is generally valued at approximately 30 cents to 85 cents. That means if your coin has normal circulation wear, scratches, contact marks, dull surfaces, and flat details, its realistic value is usually close to face value rather than hundreds or thousands of dollars. This is where many online coin videos and listings can become confusing. You may see a 1966 quarter advertised for hundreds or even thousands of dollars, but those prices generally relate to exceptional coins rather than ordinary circulated examples. A coin's date alone does not determine its value. The condition, grade, strike quality, surface preservation, varieties, errors, and collector demand all matter. The difference becomes dramatic when we look at high-grade examples. PCGS lists an auction record of $21,000 for the regular 1966 Washington quarter. That sounds unbelievable when compared with a circulated coin worth less than $1, but there is a very important reason for the enormous difference. The $21,000 result was achieved by an exceptionally high-grade coin, not by a normal worn quarter. A particularly important recent auction result involved a PCGS MS68 Plus 1966 Washington quarter. Heritage Auctions described the coin as the single finest 1966 quarter at PCGS at the time, with only 5 examples at the MS68 level, and the featured coin carrying the MS68 Plus designation. The coin sold for $20,400 at Stack's Bowers in November 2023. This is a perfect example of condition rarity. The 1966 quarter itself is common, but an almost flawless example at the very top of the grading scale is extremely difficult to find. There is another documented MS67 example that sold for $168 at a Stack's Bowers auction in April 2023. Notice the enormous difference between $168 for an MS67 and $20,400 for an MS68 Plus example. This shows how powerful professional grading can be for a modern coin when it reaches the highest levels. A tiny difference in grade can represent thousands of dollars when collectors compete for the finest known examples. For someone holding a circulated 1966 quarter, however, these auction records should not create unrealistic expectations. If your coin has been used in everyday commerce for decades, it is almost certainly nowhere near MS68 Plus. A circulated coin will show wear on the raised areas of Washington's portrait and on the reverse design. The hair, cheek, jaw lettering, eagle, and other high points may show flattening or loss of detail. Those characteristics are normal and usually keep the coin in a relatively low-value circulated category. If your 1966 quarter looks dirty or dark, resist the temptation to clean it. Cleaning a collectible coin can permanently damage its surfaces. Rubbing, polishing, abrasive materials, or chemicals can create scratches and unnatural surfaces that collectors may dislike. If you believe your coin could have unusual value, leave it exactly as you found it and have it evaluated without altering the original surface. You should also inspect the edge and rim. Look for anything that appears unusual, but remember that damage is not the same thing as a mint error. A bent rim, deep scratch, dent, gouge, or flat area may have happened after the coin left the mint. Genuine errors are created during the manufacturing process and require careful examination. The 1966 quarter can be especially interesting when you find a genuine variety or error. However, you should never assume that every unusual-looking 1966 quarter is valuable. There are many online listings with dramatic asking prices, including ungraded coins advertised for hundreds of dollars, but an asking price is not evidence that someone actually paid that amount. When determining real market value, documented completed auction sales are much more useful. Another important category is the 1966 Special Mint Set Quarter. These coins were made differently from normal business strike circulation coins and can have special strike characteristics. PCGS lists a separate 1966 Special Strike Washington Quarter category, with an auction record of $450 for an SB68 example. A special mint set coin should not be confused with an ordinary circulated 1966 quarter that simply happens to have attractive surfaces. The regular business strike 1966 quarter had a production figure of approximately 821,101,500 coins. That enormous mintage tells us why the ordinary circulated coin is not rare, but mintage alone does not tell the whole story. Many coins were circulated and became worn, while only a small number survived in extraordinary condition. This is why collectors use the term condition rarity. Imagine two 1966 Washington quarters side by side. The first has been in circulation for many years. It has scratches, contact marks, dull surfaces, and visible wear. The second has brilliant original luster, sharp details, virtually flawless surfaces, and has been professionally certified at an elite grade. Both coins have the same date and no mint mark, but their market values can be dramatically different. This is why you should examine the condition before deciding what your coin is worth. Look closely at Washington's hair and cheek. Check the lettering around the portrait. Examine the date for clarity. Turn the coin over and inspect the eagle, lettering, and rim. If the coin has obvious wear, it is circulated. If it appears completely untouched, with strong luster and extremely clean surfaces, it may deserve further investigation. Professional grading becomes particularly important when you believe you have a high-grade 1966 quarter. A grading company evaluates the coin's condition and assigns a standardized grade. That grade can make a major difference when the coin is sold to serious collectors. The auction records for MS-67 and MS-68 Plus examples demonstrate exactly how much the market can reward exceptional preservation. But professional grading is not automatically worthwhile for every coin. If your 1966 quarter is heavily circulated and worth less than $1, grading costs can be much greater than the coin's value. The more sensible approach is to first examine the coin carefully and determine whether there is a realistic reason it could be valuable. One of the biggest mistakes new collectors make is focusing only on the highest price they can find online. If you search for 1966 quarter value, you may find a $20,000 auction result and immediately believe your coin is worth the same amount, but that would be misleading. The $20,400 result belongs to an exceptionally rare high-grade specimen. It does not represent the value of an ordinary circulated 1966 quarter. The same principle applies to errors. If you see an online seller asking $450 or $600 for a supposed 1966 error quarter, that does not prove the coin is worth that amount. Look for confirmed examples, professional opinions, and actual completed sales before assigning a major value to an unusual coin. For a normal circulated 1966 Washington quarter with no mint mark, the most realistic value today is generally around 30 cents to 85 cents according to NGC's June 2026 guide. The exact amount can vary depending on the degree of wear, eye appeal, market conditions, and whether the coin has any special characteristic. If the coin is uncirculated, the potential value changes. General market guides show that values rise as the grade increases, and high-grade examples can become much more expensive. One current reference lists MS-67 examples in the hundreds of dollars and much higher figures for the rarest top grades, while PCGS documents the $21,000 auction record for the series. The key point is that these higher prices are for exceptional specimens, not normal circulated coins. The famous $20,400 MS-68 Plus example is especially useful because it demonstrates how a common date coin can become rare at the highest grade. Heritage's description emphasized that the quarter itself is not rare. The exceptional MS-68 Plus condition is what makes the coin extraordinary. This is an important lesson for anyone searching through old change. Don't just look for old dates. Look for coins that are unusually well preserved. If you have a circulated 1966 quarter, there is still no reason to throw it away. It is a genuine piece of United States coinage from an important period of the Washington quarter series. It can be kept as part of a date collection, used as an example of the early clad era, or simply appreciated as a historic piece of American currency. The most important thing is to know what you actually have. A regular 1966 Washington quarter without a mint mark is normal. A circulated example is generally worth only a small amount above or around face value. A high-grade certified example can be worth much more, and an extraordinary MS-68 Plus coin has demonstrated a 5-figure auction value. If you're checking your own coin, start with the date. Confirm that it is 1966. Next, check underneath Washington's neck and confirm that there is no mint mark. Then examine the condition. If you see obvious circulation where your coin is probably an ordinary circulated example. If you see strong original luster and almost no contact marks, you may have something worth researching further. After that, examine the coin for possible errors or varieties. Look at the lettering, date, rims, and design elements. Use magnification if necessary, but do not mistake ordinary damage for a mint error. If something appears genuinely unusual and valuable, professional authentication can protect you from making an expensive mistake. The market for the 1966 Washington quarter is a great example of how coin collecting really works. The date itself is common, but the best preserved examples are scarce. More than 821 million were struck, yet only a tiny number have reached the very highest grades. That difference between overall rarity and condition rarity is what creates the huge gap between a circulated quarter worth less than $1 and a top-grade specimen that is sold for more than $20,000. If someone tells you that every 1966 no-mint mark Washington quarter is rare, that is not correct. The no-mint mark feature is normal for this issue. If someone tells you that every 1966 quarter is worth thousands of dollars, that is also incorrect. The majority are common circulated coins, but if someone tells you that a truly exceptional 1966 quarter can be worth serious money, that is supported by documented auction evidence, the $20,400 auction result is one of the clearest examples. The PCGS MS68 Plus 1966 Washington quarter sold at Stack's Bowers in November 2023 for $20,400, and Coin World reported the same result. Meanwhile, an MS67 example sold for $168 in 2023. These results show just how much the grade and quality of the individual coin matter. So before spending your 1966 Washington quarter, take one more careful look. Don't focus only on the fact that it has no mint mark, because that is normal. Focus on condition, surfaces, strike quality, possible errors, and whether the coin has been professionally certified. Most circulated examples are modestly valued, but exceptional coins can be a completely different story. And remember, the goal of coin collecting is not to assume that every old coin is a fortune waiting to be discovered. The real skill is learning how to separate ordinary coins from genuinely unusual ones. A circulated 1966 Washington quarter may be worth only around 25 to 85 cents, but an exceptional certified specimen has reached thousands of dollars, and in one extraordinary case, more than $20,000 at auction. So keep checking your old quarters, but check them carefully. Look at the date, understand why there is no mint mark, examine the condition, and investigate anything unusual before deciding what the coin is worth. Never clean a potentially valuable coin, never rely solely on online asking prices, and always compare your coin with documented auction results. The 1966 Washington quarter proves that even a common coin can become extraordinarily valuable when it survives in exceptional condition.